We're live and I haven't clicked the intro.
Do the intro.
Welcome to the Hop Edition podcast, brought to you in association with the Malt Miller, your go-to choice for premium homebrewing ingredients and equipment. Whether you're a beginner starting out or an experienced brewer, the Malt Miller has got you covered. So for top quality products and customer service, jump over to themaltmiller.co.uk and tell them the Hop Edition sent you. We would also like to thank all our Patreons for their continued support with running and developing the pod. If you would like to become a member and gain access to exclusive perks and benefits, head over to patreon.com/the Hop Edition. Now it's time to get this pod started, so crack open a homebrew and enjoy the episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 91 of the Hop Edition podcast. Tonight we are joined by Will Rogers from Charles Faram. We've got some really exciting things lined up to talk about on the podcast. Obviously, we're going to be going for a deep dive on hops, how they're developed, and all that good information there. But we're also going to be sampling a range of beers that we've each brewed. And the kicker with that one is that they're all using a very special hop from Charles Faram. But that's not all. We're also joined by none other than the master of malt, the bestie of the Westies, and the yin to Stiffo's yang. It's Martin Rake, aka Rakey from the Malt Miller, who's come along to enjoy the fun with us. So welcome to both of you, Will and Rakey. Before we get started with the conversation, just a quick reminder. Definitely got to say this as Rakey's here, that you need to go and check out our wonderful sponsor, the Malt Miller, your premier supplier of all things homebrew. I've got Rakey on tonight. He might let us know about a few new products and things as we go through the pod, or not, depending on how he's feeling about that one. While you are over at the Malt Miller, don't forget to check out their dedicated Hop Edition recipe section, where you can find a range of beers that are featured on the podcast, including our own creations and some absolute stunners from our guests. So that's the intro done. Welcome, Will. Thank you for joining us. Let's get started by just you sort of introducing yourself properly and telling us a little bit about what you do and who Charles Faram are as well.
Thank you, Rich. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for letting me on. So I'm Group Technical Director at Charles Faram, and we're a 150 plus year old hop merchant. We're grower owned, and my dubious job title is Group Technical Director. So I look at all the technical improvements within the company, but I also run the breeding program, which is where various new varieties like Jester, Olicana, Godiva, Mystic, Harlequin, and the hop we're gonna taste in a moment, where that comes from. And my background is hop growing. I was born on a hop farm, and so any technical questions you have about hop growing itself, I'm also here to answer any of those questions.
Fantastic. So we've got lots of stuff, obviously, that we can dig into there as far as the information on hops and how they're developed, and especially the breeding program, obviously, in terms of what we're also going to be tasting tonight. But we've got quite a few beers to actually get through, so I think it's high time that we get stuck into those. So first up, we have got Owen's beer. So Owen, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the beer that we're drinking first of all, and then we can talk about the hop that's gone into it as well?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good starting point, isn't it? Is my microphone really loud? Was it all right?
I think it's okay. Yeah.
Good. Okay. I'm sounding really loud in my own ears. There you go. I'll turn that down. So yeah, we have. Should we set the scene in terms of the beers we're all going to be drinking?
Yes, that's
this
a good
evening. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? So So Will very kindly has shared some really exciting, very, very newly developed hops or newly grown hops. I think, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, there was only 3 kilos in the whole of the UK or something like that.
Uh,
3 kilos of
yeah,
pellets.
the pellets.
15 kilos you told me in total.
15 kilos in total. This is the first you've ever been able to manage to pellet anything less than 600 kilos. So to be able to do 15 kilos of raw hops, it was only pellets made out of it. So yeah, it was very limited volume.
And do you want to just, Will, maybe just tell us a little bit more about this hop that you very kindly shared with the Malt Miller, and who in turn kindly shared a small amount with the four of us, which we've then used to expertly or not so expertly make into some homebrew beer. Homebrew beers? I'm not sure where that came from. Homebrewed beer is what I meant. Yeah, there's a lot of beards on this show. Yeah, tell us a bit about the hop.
Yeah, of course. So it's an F4 granddaughter. So that means 4 generations on from Cascade. So you wouldn't necessarily recognise any varieties in that lineage apart from Cascade. Its actual mother was a variety catchily titled 2085. That was it. I think it was CF261, but it only had a couple of people brew with it. But there was an idea behind this variety, and we were looking for a really high resin hop variety. So 2085, its mother, is a really resinous variety, not necessarily massive alpha. It's sort of 8% alpha, but really, really sticky. So when you rub it, it's got lots of resin in. And we were trying to combine that with a male that had produced some high aroma progeny. So, hops are dioecious, so you've got a male plant and a female plant. We only brew with a female plant. So the female was very high resin. The male had produced some offspring that were really high aroma. And so we did a cross with that, and that's what this variety came out of. The problem we had, and why it didn't progress through the program very quickly, wasn't because it didn't smell fantastic, because I think we can all agree that it smells fantastic and it seems to brew pretty good beer. I don't want to spoil the punchline, but it does. The problem with it was that we had suspicions about verticillium wilt, which is if you're not aware of hop diseases, verticillium wilt is a bit like a fungus. It's very closely related to a fungus. It lives in the soil and it attacks hops in particular. It can be hosted in lots of other broadleaf plants, so it's quite difficult to eradicate. But if a variety is susceptible, like a fuggle is a very good example of a really susceptible variety, it will just kill it. And then as a pathogen, verticillium wilt's very effective at spreading itself. So when it realizes it's killed the host, it goes into what's called a sporification phase, a bit like a mushroom producing all those spores. It produces loads of spores, it puts them into the plant that it's killed, and all that material on that plant then becomes contagious. So what we were very concerned with CF302, that we were going to be developing a variety that might be susceptible to this disease, and we don't want to get you guys excited about a new variety only to tell you in a couple of years' time that we're going to have to rip it out. And worse still, if you grow a susceptible variety, it can spread the problem around. So we like to stick with resistant varieties that we're planting out. So we had to test it a little while, and we did that by actually sticking it in the most infected corner of a hop yard, and it all seems to have survived. So it slowed the progress down. We thought it was susceptible. It now doesn't appear to be, and we're really quite optimistic about it. So we'll press ahead with it as a variety, I think. And we also have some growing as an organic variety, which is quite exciting. So apart from this verticillium wilt question, it's actually a really robust variety. So it bodes well. If growers can grow it, then there's a really good chance we can get that out to market and get it to you guys.
Oh, that sounds super promising. Well, thanks for that background. So what's the catchy name for this exciting new hop?
We don't have a name for it, and it's been bandied around already this evening that maybe you guys should have a crack at naming it. So I think answers on a postcard. Let's see if we can come up with a good name for it. Why not?
All right. So it's currently called CF302. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Catchy name.
So I think we could probably take it up a step from there. But that's just a code name, right?
After drinking 5 or 6 different beers.
Yeah, we'll get a vibe.
Yeah.
So the premise here was as I mentioned already, but I'll just reiterate. Will very kindly shared some of this very limited new hop with the Malt Miller. The Malt Miller being our best pals, very kindly shared some with the podcast compadres, and we have all produced a beer using this new hop from Charles Faram. It's in pellet format. And we're going to spend the evening drinking through all the beers and seeing what we kind of get from the hop and how it presents itself in different styles and all the rest of it. So we're starting with my beer. My beer is, as a style, it's my kind of house pale ale. It's normally a kind of hazy pale ale. So it's a relatively straightforward kind of pale ale malt, which I think was from Crisp. Some wheat malt and a little bit of protein malt. I think in this case I used chit malt, or you could use carapils. Fermented out with WHC saturated, and then the hopping rate was I used a small amount at 60 minutes to add a bit of bittering, so I think it was about 10 grams, and then I added. The rest was in the whirlpool and then a dry hop. So we only had 100 grams to play with. Crack it open, guys. See what you think. Any questions on the beer? In terms of style, how I made it?
So just on the hop additions for this, what was the kind of ratio of dry hop to stuff in the whirlpool or the boil or...
Good question, Trekkie.
etc., etc.
From the top of my head, I think I went 40 grams whirlpool. I'll have to double check.
Probably not far off what I did with mine then, I reckon.
I reckon we were all pretty close except for Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just threw everything into the whirlpool.
So at 10 grams at 60 minutes, which was a first work addition. 40 grams in the whirlpool and 50 grams in the dry hop.
Okay.
And that was a post fermentation dry hop in for a couple of days, cooled it down to about 14-15 degrees, dry hopped it, cold crashed it, kegged it.
Sounds quite similar to what I did once, because I was, Pilsen malt, that was the Dingermans, and then it was 320 grams of carapils and 320 grams of flaked wheat. And then I put Simcoe at 60, 11 grams, and then I did a 50 gram whirlpool at 85 for an hour. So I was kind of trying to do that C-bomb thing to try and squeeze as much sort of out of it as possible and maybe be more in line like a kind of commercial brewery would when they kind of have that extended whirlpool time. And then a 50 gram at the dry hop. So yeah, but it was saturated as well. So it's quite similar. And
yeah, I think our three beers are going to be pretty close, especially based off what I'm tasting with this one at the minute. So I think this is it's going to be fairly similar to this, I think. But I think this is a descriptor that's probably going to come up quite a lot tonight. But melon, Melon on the nose for me, and maybe a hint of something else in there, like a little dash of strawberry or something. I'm not sure. What does everyone else think? Don't all jump in at once.
I know. I get.
I've
Sorry,
accidentally
I'm just passing
overcarbonated my
information
keg.
on to one of our guests at the moment.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
I accidentally hooked my keg up to the disco for my wife's prosecco. So mine's slightly overcarbonated.
bit
Great
lively.
head though. Great head. So
I was thinking there's sort of a bit of Nelson, sort of peppery note on the top or something.
We have to apologise to Martin at this point because unfortunately your beer didn't make it to Reiki Owen, which is why he's there looking a little bit sad. at the
oh,
moment.
I'm sorry, mate.
But you know what you
Yeah,
can
it's
do
like
though,
your
Reiki.
rival on the pod. Late.
Reiki,
It might
you
arrive.
can-
Might arrive Monday.
You can have it for breakfast on Monday, mate. It's all good.
Oh, gosh.
All I get from this beer is melon, followed by an overtone of this weird, almost sharp, sour nectarine flavour. And then right in the background, just kind of sitting there after that, I get peach.
Nectarine's
And I
a
abs-
really good shout, actually, Chris.
I
There's
absolutely
definitely a
adore this
nectarine
beer.
flavour on that.
It's
I
very
know-
delicate. It's
It
super
is,
delicate, isn't it?
it's lovely. It's really,
Yeah.
really nice. It's almost got it, when I look at it and I see how pale it is and how kind of almost white wine it looks like, my brain says no. This is a Sauvignon Blanc. Don't drink it because I don't really like wine. But then the actual flavor wise, it just comes through with these rolls of melon, this honeydew melon. And then right in the back, I've got this peach with this wave of almost tart nectarine. It's just, I love this beer. It's great beer. You shouldn't have been worried about this beer at all, Owen. It's a cracker.
I think it for me it just lacks a tiny bit of sweetness. I think maybe just like a little bit of caramel or something in there might just lift it.
Being a bit
maybe
lower
I'm being
ABV
picky.
though, I think it's really, I think it's very, very drinkable. I mean, I could drink this all afternoon, and the sweetness, to be honest, would put me off. I like that dry finish. It just makes me want to have another
For
mouthful.
more. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I think this would be like beautiful as a kind of cask golden ale or something like that. I think that would be fantastic.
I just
Yeah.
want a barbecue and some sun and a chair outside. That's all I want.
Lawnmower beer.
Lawnmower beer, mate. It's a banger. It's a banger, this. Love it.
I think the nectarine on the nose is absolutely spot on. I was trying to pick it out earlier, and I couldn't quite. It's tropical, but what is it? Yeah, I think nectarine's the.
No, I agree. I think you absolutely nailed it with nectarine as a.
It was Reiki. I was saying peach. Reiki said nectarine. As soon as he said it, I'm like, that's the one. It's nectarine. It's almost sharp though. It's not sweet nectarine. It's kind of you're muted Reiki. It's kind of like a sharp nectarine. It's beautiful. I love
It's
it.
like it's like that taste you
Yeah.
get from the nectarine skin a little bit. I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
A little bit piffy, but
Yeah.
only slightly. But you get that juicy, just that juicy stone fruitness. And then I also get kind of like mandarin when we've tasted the beer we've done. Loads of like orangey mandarin citrus with it.
You should not have been hesitant to send this one out at all, Owen. That's a banger, mate. It's a really nice beer. If it don't flick your bean, I get it, but it's quite happily flicking mine.
Oh, and is it actually conditioned
Well-
a bit better? See, over time, has it actually changed?
I think it has actually. Yeah, I was getting sort of quite an odd, quite minerally sort of flavour from it, and I think that's actually abated a little bit. From what
I
I'm
think the
tasting,
melon's
which is
just
good.
it's just ripened off. The melon has a bit, I think.
Yeah,
nice.
it seems to have turned a corner. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm glad I sent it out in the end because I was threatening not to.
Yeah. No. What was your water profile? Do you know?
It was pretty subdued. I didn't go nuts on it.
Yeah.
I think I went 47 chloride, 20 sulfate. So it's pretty relatively soft water profile. Built up from RO, so I just knew that quite a delicate beer like this and a low ABV beer was not
Yeah.
going to take too much faffing around with the water, I think.
Cool. Should we try
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's lovely. So as we go along, we're going to drop in a few kind of questions for you, Will, and
No problem.
obviously we can kind of chat as we're going through these beers. But if everyone wants to get Chris's beer lined up next, we've got a lager up next. So it'll be interesting to see the difference between the two styles there in terms of how it presents.
I'm having some technical difficulties at the moment with my kegerator, so if you could give me a moment, that would be great.
Okay,
Please
don't worry,
play
we'll
some
carry on
holding
talking.
music.
So we were that's the one. So we were talking a little bit about this before we went live, but in terms of hop development process and timeline, so I think we've got an idea that it can be quite a drawn out, lengthy process between identifying hops that might be suitable and then getting to the point where they're actually commercially available. And obviously, this particular hop you were saying earlier, has been around for a little while but isn't commercially available yet. So what is that process? How does that process break down, and what's the timeline for that? How long is it kind of from the first, when you first pick out a variety that's got potential to when it's in the shop, basically?
So traditionally it was about 15 years. Very, very slow, really, really
Wow.
slow. And our program's a commercial program, so we it's all private money from the company that supports the program. So we really wanted to see how we could speed that up. So we make the crosses. We plant about 15,000 new varieties a year as seeds.
That's nice.
You won't. It's an attritional program, so we don't have the resources to actually look at 15,000 plants a year. That's a massive task. So we actually deliberately expose them to downy and powdery mildew, which are two fungal diseases that also affect hops. And some will get powdery mildew, others won't. So we take the resistant ones of those, and then we expose them to downy mildew, which all of them will get to some degree or other. And we try and take the ones that get it the least, and we say we rescue them. So we sort of treat them for the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the year, we'll have about 2,000 seedlings, small plants. So that's the end of year one. Then as we go into year two, we sort of repeat that process on those plants, and we try and get it down to about 1,000, because that's really the number that we can practically look at 1,000. So we have a pipeline, so it's 1,000 a year for 5 years. So we're still looking at 5,000 plants, but you have to get those numbers down as quickly as possible. So at the end of the second year, we actually have cones, and this is the exciting bit. So you may have seen or heard, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram or what have you, we do these things called aroma fests, where we invite brewers to come and have a look at some of the new varieties, and the idea is to sort of try and pull through the ones that are showing the most promise as quickly as possible. So after that, we can propagate from those plants at the start of year 3, and by year 5 we should be having brewing samples. We may have chosen at that point to take cuttings not only in year 3 but also in year 4. So potentially, and we've got a couple of varieties that are just going ahead this year that will have half an acre to an acre after 5 years, which is, so we've shortened that time span down to about 5 years. It is, the more risks you take, the more likely you are to have a problem. So there was a variety that was going to be released, which was a sister of Harlequin, and that failed at the point at which we were going to name it. So slightly further down the line than 302, but only just, and that failed at that point then. So it's a risk we take with growers, so that they come along this journey with us. But it is unfortunate that we've managed to sort of trim this down to the bare minimum, but we are taking risks in doing that.
Okay.
It sounds
So-
to me like a very expensive proposition developing a new hop, and a rather risky one. I mean, everybody knows I'm the scientist of the group, and I understand a little bit about, sort of growing things and genetics and whatnot. But it's still, to me, even though I understand it, it's still, dude, you're taking a big risk. This is not something to be taken lightly, is it? It's a big proposition.
No. So in order to get Citra, the hop breeding company planted about 150,000 seeds.
Jesus Christ.
To put
Not
it in
messing
perspective.
about, are they?
No. And I mean, that can be made even more difficult if you're trying to replace an existing variety. So, I mean, it's an apt point. We're trying a lager now, and you'll all be familiar with Sarts, the variety from the Czech Republic. So, the Czech Research Institute, we've helped them in the past with some of this. So, it's why I know the numbers. For the last 20 years, they've planted 50,000 seeds a year to try and find a suitable replacement for Sarts. Sarts is a very old variety. It basically suffers with everything, and they want something that's a little bit more consistent. You may have heard that last year was a good crop. The year before that was half of a normal yield. The year before that, it was a bumper yield. It's very difficult to know what, farmers don't know what they're doing when the yields go up and down like this. So yeah, for 20 years they planted 50,000 varieties, and they don't have a single replacement for Sarts. They planted 1 million new varieties, and they still don't have it. That's the orders of magnitude that we're working with.
That's a lot of work just to try and find a replacement for what
The
is
best hop
probably
ever.
it's one of the most popular hops in the world, isn't it? Really, let's face it.
For
It's
lager.
magic.
Yeah, lager. Yeah.
It's a great hop. So, a little bit of information about the beer that you're all drinking now. So, this is pretty much my standard sort of lager base that I like to use. So, it's 3.5 kilos of Pilsner, a kilo of Vienna, 250 grams of Carapils. The starting gravity was 1042. The final gravity was 1011. It's come out 4.1%. And hopping wise, I used 13 grams of Magnum at 60 minutes to kind of give it a bit of bitterness, 20 grams of 302 at 10 minutes, 30 grams of 302 at 70 degrees for a hop stand for 20 minutes, whirlpooled, and then 50 grams in a dry hop for 2 days. The yeast was WHC's Hopping Pills, which as far as I can work out is basically White Labs WLP 820, their Marzen yeast, which kind of is, I mean, anybody who knows me or has even remotely sniffed the podcast knows that's my favorite yeast in the world.
Yeah.
73% attenuation is exactly what I got with this. And the water profile was basically, it was the Pilsen profile. So 50 on calcium and then negligible of anything else, except I used 91 chlorine. I just wanted
Chlorine?
the hops.
Chlorine, don't put that in, Chris. That's a bad idea.
From a biochemist, I have
Go back and listen to that water chemistry episode.
One letter wrong. Seriously, one letter wrong, and I get this level of shit.
You're not getting away with that. No,
Call yourself a scientist.
You and your receding hairline. So 91 chloride, okay, not chlorite, not chlorine, chloride. All right. And it fermented off like an absolute champ. It cleared up pretty nice.
It's got a lovely head. Oh.
I'm quite a big fan of this beer, I'll be honest.
Chris, it's an absolute. It is so It's like it's very drinkable, very drinkable.
I think it's quite interesting that to me it seems like the yeast has interacted with the hops the hop flavour on this quite a bit because it presents quite a different flavour.
Yeah.
To me, and it's got a bit of a kind of like hedgerowy kind of fruit, but I get a little bit of berry on it. Almost there's weirdly, I kind of get a little hint of almost like blackcurrant.
Yeah, it's exactly what I get.
Very subtle Ribena
This is what you're talking about.
vibe in the background.
Yeah.
But you do get that nice melon, and you do still get that peachy nectarine as well. It's just there's a smidge of blackcurrant in there at the same time. It's not going to last long in the keg. That's pretty much all I'll say about this beer. It's a very drinkable beer. So, what do you reckon to it, Reiki?
It's really, like you say, smashable. I'm getting all of that kind of hedgerowy, like honeydew melon, and the hedgerow and the kind of blackberry is all there. It's like a different. There's a slight. The citrus has changed a little bit on it. It's almost lemony rather than orangey.
Yeah. Is anybody else getting? And I know I'm going to affect every single one of you by saying this, but is anybody getting a wee slight hint of gooseberry where the nectarine is? It's almost like there's a mixture of the gooseberry and some nectarine.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more tart, kind of the flavour on it, as opposed to that nectarine taste on the first one.
I'm almost getting a little.
Sorry, go on, Will.
A little bit of green pepper, and I think it sounds quite different to gooseberry, but I think actually they're not very far away on the flavour spectrum. I really like it. I just some people don't like green pepper, but actually I like that. I get a little bit of it.
I'm glad you said that, Will. So I think if you give it a little swirl and then check the aroma, you definitely get a pepper. I'm getting a pepper thing.
I was thinking peppery, and I think I got that in your zone a little bit, just on the nose. It was a kind of peppery. But yours, the aroma I think on yours was slightly stronger, but the flavour in this one is stronger, if you know what I mean. It's weird.
I think that's a result of whirlpooling at a slightly lower temperature.
Yeah, I think I went about 75.
I get that with a lot of beers. If you whirlpool at 80, you don't seem to get as much flavour as if you whirlpool at 70. That's just that's anecdotal.
Try mine at 85.
Yeah. No, I'm proud of this beer and I love this hop, and I genuinely can't wait to make more lagers with it when it's named exactly the right name that we've talked about already. That I'm not going to say, but Melanie is what this hop should be called. Melanie. And I
going in early with that one.
I can't wait until this comes out and I can buy it, because this is really nice.
Yeah.
Have you found with the testing that you've done on it so far, Will, that you are getting quite a lot of different descriptors for it depending on what kind of beer it is put into?
Yeah, absolutely. When Reiki and I were out I don't know whether you've seen the podcast that we did in the middle of the field, but it was so, even green, it was so complexly tropical. I to be honest, it's easier when it's brewed with to pull out those aromas and flavors than it is as a green hop. I've run out of descriptors for it as a green hop. Everybody that's brewed with it so far has come up with a range of, the spectrum of tropical flavors, but I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head with those peachy, nectarine-y flavors. That stone fruit, but not necessarily like plum or apricot, more of the sort of peach, nectarine, that sort of thing.
Just out of curiosity, have you done an analysis on this for the different levels of, I want to say terpenes, but I don't think they're called terpenes. Wrong type of plant. But the
no, they are terpenes. You're right.
They are terpenes.
And the plant you're talking about is only just a cousin of it. They're very closely related.
Very close.
So
don't smoke Simba, though. I'll tell you that one for free. Don't try it. It's not good.
They
Pro tip.
Yeah. Don't do it. You'll cough for about an hour.
I prefer to get an oil analysis done when the plant has been growing for a few years and in a commercial setting,
Yeah.
rather than in the experimental setting. If you think when we've got 1 or 2 plants growing, how are we going to know that that is true to type and that's exactly how it's going to be in a few years? So I tend to leave the oil analysis to later. We have a hunch about whether it's going to work, and that's where this is really important. We then get it brewed with. Does it actually work in the beer? I mean, to be quite honest, who cares what the oil profile is if it works when you brew with it?
Yeah.
So we will do that work, but we tend to leave it till it's about to go commercial, rather than sort of wait, because three of you wouldn't have been able to brew with it if we had sent it for oil analysis. And I tell you what, we've got a lot more out of getting it brewed with than we would have done from an oil analysis.
I'm sorry, that's just the science geek in me just wants to know what the different proportions are of the oils. I have a theory which I'm keeping in my own head and I will not put out here, that there is a link between percentages of different oils and the actual flavor that you get out of it, dependent upon the malt that it's brewed with. That's my theory, and we'll see where we end up on that one. I just need a HPLC MS and then I can do my own analysis.
You are right. The problem is that brewing beer is very complex, and you've got yeast interaction as well, just to make things more difficult. But there's also, you've spoken about terpenes. Well, we're sensitive to them in parts per million. Some of them are very volatile, some of them aren't. Some of them are soluble, some of them aren't. So there's talk about survivables. But also there are things like thiols, so sulfur-based compounds, that we're sensitive to in parts per billion. So you only need a tiny amount of those to completely skew your flavour profile. My view is it's very difficult to actually tell how a hop will behave by looking at an oil profile. My view is first we brew with it, then we can try and understand it later. But the important thing is, does what you're smelling when you rub it translate into beer?
Yeah.
I mean, almost never is it identical, but some translate much better than others, and some you think of something classic. Sarts is a very good example. Sarts, if you rub it, doesn't smell anything like the beer comes out, and it comes out sweet and floral and really fantastic. That's why it's one of the world's most popular hops.
Summer Meadows, Bavarian Summer Meadows. That's SARS for me.
Well, I mean, I kind of think back to when we were in that field, Will, and I think it was probably September time last year. You showed us the plant with it on. We smelt it. It smelled tropical. It smelled juicy. It smelled mango-y, like everything you want from a hop. Then took us to show us it being dried on that kind of really tiny dryer that you got, and it kind of still retained a lot of those. Then when we got the pellets, but then drinking the beer, it slowly changes through the whole different process. What your plant perception to your dried perception to the beer perception, massively different.
So, just out of curiosity, to jump on that, Reiki, do you think that this hop would be different if it was fresh hopped compared to if it's pelletized? Do you think it would give a different flavor profile if we use fresh?
Who knows?
We need to make that one happen, Will.
To do a fresh beer.
We'll have to try it.
There's not enough green hop beer to do.
We can do that.
You see, I like this, man.
Not a problem. That pepper that we discussed, that hedgerow fruit that you get, I suspect would be exacerbated in a green hop brew. You'll get more of that green chlorophyll-y kind of character to back that up as well. But having said that, you're quite right. You can't tell, and needs to be tested.
I like this testing lark. Definitely. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Did you say that you pelletized all of the yield that you got, or did you have some in leaf form? And if you did have in leaf form, have many people brewed with it? And have you tried the beers?
We had some in leaf form last year. All of it that was produced from the 2023 crop was pelletized. I didn't even take a leaf sample out of it, much to my frustration, because we then couldn't bench test it against the other varieties within the system. Rakey's wagging his finger. Hang on.
I've got 500 grams of it in leaf form from Mr. Stringer.
Oh, where did he get that from? Then
Don't ask John. John does just
stuff.
John does stuff and sends stuff to us, and it just arrived, and this Stiffo just almost like wet his pants. He was that excited by it arriving. He's like, "We can do another beer."
Amazing.
Yeah.
Any plans for
Yeah,
that
it'll
at the
be
moment,
the organic
Reiki?
stuff because
Sorry.
I think West Coast Pale was what Stiffo was talking about, or possibly a New
Okay.
England Pale. That's kind of what we want to kind of edge with it next.
Interesting.
I think we need to have another delivery of cans when that beer happens, because it would be cool. No, I'll tell you why, Reiki, because it'd be nice to do a follow-up with the leaf compared to the pellet.
Yeah, especially after some of the things we've just been doing in terms of like St. Austell and Burning Sky, the difference leaf can add to a beer over pellets.
Yeah, we need to do this.
yeah,
It
more
definitely goes more
nuanced.
floral. Yeah.
Mm.
Right, well, that's another variable that we need to add to the production of beer and where it can come from. Jesus Christ. I'm currently up to infinity times infinity with the number of different varieties we can make. So, yeah, wonderful. Thanks. You've just confused me even more.
Chris, did you say this is hopping pills that's in this, the yeast?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of sad news. You need to stock up.
We know.
I already know.
Okay.
Yeah. You've got about 30 packs left. I'm waiting until there's about 20, then I'm buying them all.
Yeah, Stiffo dropped that bad news, Reiki.
Yeah, he dropped that bad news on us because we were going to use hopping pills for the Citra beer that we've just done for the live brew day. And he's like, oh, no, there's not enough. And then he broke into me that he'd managed to somehow secure another 50. And I was trying to justify to my wife spending 90 quid on dried yeast. Didn't go down too well, I'll be honest. She thought that paying for kids' clothes was more important. How dare she?
You need to slant it.
It's a great yeast. It's a great yeast,
banger,
but
mate.
unfortunately with WHC, it's driven by the pro industry. You know that it's not a yeast that's being used that much, so it doesn't get dried, and
that's because nobody makes
not
Mars
going
ends.
forward. I'm afraid. It's
Yeah,
the
it's just
Oktoberfest yeast, so I think maybe it's that seasonality of it.
Yeah. Well, they should be like me and brew them all year
Lager
round.
yeast are notorious. Yeah, lager yeast are notoriously difficult to propagate as well. So it might be that if it lacks vigor as far as that's concerned, it can be very expensive to do.
Yeah, I think that's also an influence.
Whose beer are we having next? Is it the Malt Miller's beer
It's
next?
the Malt Miller up next.
Yeah, I've opened it.
The sexy black cans from the Malt Miller.
It's a lot darker.
I'll tell you something, we're crushing through these beers. I'm going to be absolutely pissed by the time I'm drinking
So
Andy's.
obviously there is a video for this already, isn't there, Reiki? That people can go and watch. Don't go and watch it right now. Stick with us. But if the people haven't seen that video yet, do you want to just give us a quick run through of what you did with this beer?
Let me just get it into here. I mean, obviously it's in a can, and we were making the most of our not new, but our latest delivery of the can seamers that have come in.
Here comes the pimping.
It's not. No, look, it's proved to be a really popular product. It's budget friendly in terms of like canning machines that are out there, but it just does such a great result.
It's nice. The colour on this is pure orange, isn't it? It's like.
So this
beer
was
more of a bitter, right?
This beer was strongly influenced by. Will mentioned the hop event that we went to we were kindly invited to go to 5 Points and do a Roma Fest with Will and sniff. How many hops were there on the day? Was it like 20 different hops, new hops?
A little sweetness.
I think there were 24 there, Reiki. I can't. Yeah.
It was a fantastic day, but we got to also drink some 5 Points beers. They'd done some experimental brews, drinking 5 Points Best, one of our favourites. So we thought, we know what we'll do with CF 302. We took the 5 Points Best grist because we have the recipe, obviously because of Johnny.
Yep.
And we used 1 gram of flex for bittering, 30 grams of CF 302 at 10 minutes on the boil, 70 grams at 80C on whirlpool, and we whirlpooled that for 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, we then went for another 30 minutes with another 100 grams. Bit kind of like if you watch the tribute video we did, we found out that St. also do this aroma edition where they flush the beer through leaf hops. So we thought, well, let's just go for an extended double whirlpool and whack another 100 grams in there. So yeah, there's 200 grams basically of CF 302 into this. What do you think?
I think that's delicious, Reiki.
Yeah.
I think you should have sent me 4 cans.
How many did Stiffer send you? Because Stiffer and Rob actually canned this. They kindly sat down and kind of
we got 2
this.
cans.
We got 2 cans each, but Rob needs to stop being so damn tight and send 4 out.
Nah, that was good.
It's really nice to see the the interplay with a bit of kind of like of a more involved malt bill with a bit bit of caramel malt and stuff in there. The sweetness is really playing off of the hop flavour there and taking the citrus in a slightly more sweet, I don't know, maybe kind of marmalade-y like direction for me, which is really nice.
Sorry about that. There was a fly that had to die.
We fermented it with WHC saturated, and actually attenuated a lot lower than we expected. It was like 10.06.
That happened to me.
We were
I had saturated as well, and it went super dry. Yeah, and I
think we need to just think about that and do the mashing temp a little bit different.
I did 67 degrees mash.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine didn't go that low, but I did mash at 70 degrees, I think.
Ripped through it for both of you then.
Yeah.
I think that kind of does make it a little bit more drinkable, that dryness of it.
Yeah,
but it's still got
I like the dryness, to be fair.
Yeah. It's got amber, so this is amber, crystal, and wheat, and pale, isn't it? I'm just looking up the recipe for the 5 points. Was it 4% of each of those and 88% of the pale?
It's a nice grist. It's got a lot of subtle complexity.
I think if you want to experiment and try different hops, it's like Tricky's Smells Lagery. I love that grist for experimenting with, and I love the 5 points for experimenting with. You could do this with all kinds of different hops. You could use Mystic, you could use Godiva, you could go Centennial. So many different hops that would work well with this grist.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot more red berry out of this than I was out of either of the last 2.
Oh.
Yeah, I think maybe that sort of slightly darker malt is accentuating that darker hedgerow character.
Yeah, I'm getting red berry. I'm getting almost red currant is the flavour I want to say.
Red currant on the nose, for sure.
I think that's the dryness that's making you think of that.
It's definitely
it's
there.
more of an aroma.
I'm not getting as much melon either. I'm getting
Not
some,
as
but I'm not
melony.
getting as much.
And I'm not getting that green pepper thing quite as prominently either.
No.
It's kind of background. I can still smell that there, but
no, I like it.
I'm getting more of the
polished.
Say that one again, Will.
That.
I said it's a very, very nice bit. I could drink a lot of it because I think Rich said it's got lots of subtle complexity there, and I think every time you take a mouthful, you pick up something slightly different. Nothing unpleasant. I like it all. It's just, unctuous.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot of Simpson malt in there. Like Irene said, there's like 4 different malts in there. Is there 3 or 4 different malts?
the drinkability is right up there. Definitely, drinkability is up there.
Not very crushable.
It is one of those beers where it's. I mean, please don't take this the wrong way, Reiki. I am a lager lad at heart. However, I don't think I could drink more than a couple of these because there's quite a lot of sweetness kind of sitting in the background with it. And it's kind of, it's quite well carbonated. It's definitely a fuller palate flavour than either of the ones that we've had before.
Yeah. It's a step. It's a step in a different direction, style wise.
Yeah, it's borderline bitter. It's borderline bitter, is what it is. But it's definitely nice. It's drinkable. It's definitely drinkable.
Yeah.
What
I mean, we
you
could
bitter
easily
it
see
with?
this. Just 1 gram of flex.
Oh, flex.
I think you've been cheating by calling it 4-ish, Reiki. I reckon it's probably a bit stronger than that.
We didn't put it through the Anton Pars, but I might try and see if Stiffo can do that next week and see what it really is. It might be verging on 5.
No, he changed it. It was, what did he say, 4.5 or 4.6?
4.6.
It's supposed to be 4.2.
Yeah,
is where it was supposed to be, but
when dry.
Yeah, he told us. I think
4.6.
4.6.
It attenuated really low, apparently, according to Stiffo, to 1.006.
What was yours, Chris? What did yours go down to?
Mine went down to 10.11.
All right, okay. So, and then Tricky, yours?
What, the ABV on my one?
No, the final gravity.
I was using a different yeast again. So, what was it? Hang on.
You've got your money's
Bear
worth
with me.
out of this, haven't you, Will? You've got your
10,
money's
10.
worth out of this.
10-10 on my one.
Okay.
But that was
it's not
Liberty
about
Bell
money,
for my
One.
Chris.
It's not about money, but you've got what, 5
Exactly.
different styles with 4 different or 3 different yeasts and different hop schedules. It's definitely one way to test a hop. It definitely is.
Well, this is what Rake and I were discussing in the middle of a hop field in September was, how can we get this out so that it gets brewed by multiple brewers / breweries in multiple different styles? How do we exhaustively test it?
Give it to us. That's what you do.
And you thought you'd give it to us?
Homebrewers, mate.
Dear.
Homebrewers, mate. That's the way forward. Homebrewers, they'll brew beer, they'll do it well, and they'll do it quick, and you can get multiple results very quickly with like small amounts.
Yeah,
And more importantly, we pay to send beer to you so you can sit and get pissed on an evening. It's banging. It's a great win. Everybody's winning.
Do you want the other good news, Will? You know how you got 2 cans of this?
Yep.
You don't have to give one to John. I've got a can in the office for John, which when he puts his next order in, time to send me a message and I'll send it with his order.
This is
Am
how
I
they
allowed
get
to
you
confess?
This is the hook.
This is the hook. We get you
What an order with John.
We'll send you free
The
stuff
first-
as long as you buy stuff from us.
The first can I tucked into was a can of this, so I'm already on the second can. I'm afraid Reiki
you've
and John
done the
is going
second
to be
one.
disappointed.
Well, I think they're
Yeah.
just going to have to send you some more out, Will. I think that's all this one comes down to.
I think that was.
No, I think Stiffo's got his eyes on the rest of that keg.
It's a great beer. I love the clarity, I love the flavour, and I love the interplay between the hop and the darker malts. Those crystal malts seem to play really well with this. It's giving me, weirdly enough, it's giving me Centennial vibes. It's what it's
we
giving
thought
me
it'd
with
play
that
well
red
with
berry.
Centennial.
Yeah, those red fruits, those red berries.
I think that's partly the style of beer, though. As in, I've been to the US and had beers that would a little bit stronger than this, but they're Centennial all the way. Bit of malt backbone in there as well, and it works really well. I agree, though. I think they would play very nicely together, and make. Well, this is a very good beer. I'm very pleased with this one.
Yeah,
John, I'm really
You know
glad
what?
you
it's
like
a
it.
banger.
I think
Um,
that double
It is
whirlpool
lovely.
as well. I think that process is something I'm definitely taking forward on these kind of like classic English styles now.
I
Don't need
think
to
we
dry
need
hop. Don't
to.
mess about with dry hopping. Just do it all there.
I think we need to give a definite shout out to how well this hop in this style of beer would play with Bramling Cross.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think it'd work
me,
so
this
well
shouts-
with Bramling.
For me, this shouts
More
out
of the
this
hedgerow
would be a
fruits.
great. Yeah, I think this would work well in tribute to replace Willamette. That might be something
Yeah.
to do with that 500
interesting.
grams of leaf we've
That's a
got.
shout. That's a shout.
but what about Bell's Two Hearted? Replace the Centennial, wouldn't it?
That's not a bad shout.
Put it with the Centennial.
Will,
Ooh.
you know that stash of like leaf hops that you've got sitting doing nothing in a warehouse. You might have to send them to Rake.
Yeah, I'm going to need more than 500 grams.
Just grow more, you know.
He's doing all the beers now. All the beers.
Well,
No, it's lovely. I'm definitely getting like a sticky, it's quite a sort of sticky orange marmalade thing. A little bit of
Yes.
hedgerow. The melon is
Marmalade.
still kind of there in the aroma, though.
No, I get it on the aroma as well. It's but yeah, not so much on the taste. I kind of got a little, after sort of swirling it round a bit, I kind of got like a little bit of a kind of red candy flavour on the back end of it that was you know, like those kind of like little red lollies
Red
that you get
laces.
in. Yeah, that sort of flavour in there as well, which
Do you know what? I get that exact same flavour when you brew with Bramling Cross in a bitter.
yeah.
I get that exact same thing. It's like red laces.
I think
It's kind of sweet and kind of red berry, and it works.
Well,
fucking
again,
well.
the presentation of it is you know, quite distinctly different, but still, yeah, very distinctly
I
nice.
think as it warms up, you are
in
getting.
another style.
I think as it warms up, you're getting more of that red berry and a little bit more of that green pepper. Yeah, such a great hop.
I'm muted and I've been talking for 30 seconds. As I sit with this in my hand, the warmer it gets, the more that red berry's coming through. And the more I'm
Yeah,
feeling
exactly.
like, do you know what? This is straight red currant. God, that's good. Right.
yeah,
I wanna
strawberry
say
laces.
Yeah, strawberry laces. Yeah.
You know, like slightly peppery strawberry laces.
I need to go to Costco tomorrow and buy a big bucket of strawberry laces.
So just
I think-
pulling us back to a few of the questions that we've got on the
Stop
sheet
bringing
here.
us back to reality, Tricky. We're enjoying these beers, damn it.
Well, no, it was kind of tied into what we were saying there, because we've talked quite a bit of a lot of the descriptors we've used just there, kind of hedgerow berry type fruits and things like that. Obviously, we have mentioned some other tropical notes in this particular hop. Clearly, with a lot of the newer English varieties, I guess you are trying to get towards some of the more exciting kind of New World or American flavors in those. But what are the particular challenges that you face in trying to do that with UK hops? Is a lot of it, you know, really kind of climate dependent? And what other growing conditions kind of come into play with that? What makes it, you know, obviously it must be a little bit more difficult to do that with English hops, but what are the particular challenges there, Will?
When we set up the program, we were told that you couldn't achieve the big tropical fruit flavors from British hops because we simply didn't have enough sunshine. And you know, we're bullheaded at the best of times, so we just carried on regardless. My view is actually that if you breed a hop that is happy in its environment, it will produce all those oils and flavors. So I don't think there's any barrier to producing, you know, pineapple notes or whatever. I don't think there is. I think British hop breeding focused on producing very noble classic type aromas and flavors. We wanted Fuggles and Goldings, and the new hops had to replace those, not sort of expand the portfolio, if you like. So really, we set up this program in 2009, so that's not that long ago, really, and we've covered a lot of ground very quickly. When I showed Reiki round what we were doing, he's not here, so he can't answer, but I think it's fair to say that he was stunned by the breadth of aromas that we were getting from the experimental hops. I don't think there's no glass ceiling. We can produce an infinite palette of hops. It always amazes me that something that's 99% genetically identical produces such a broad range of flavors and aromas. But it's a really exciting time for British hop breeding. We've got some incredible stuff coming through. We had some hops that we did some trials with Buxton. I don't know whether you've seen any of those. They were called Hop Heats. 5 of our CF numbered varieties, and they basically just dry hopped a NEPA beer with the different ones, and the contrast was fantastic. And one of those, CF321, is going to go ahead already on the back of that experiment. So there's lots to look forward to.
Whoa. So you're telling me there's another one?
Oh, we've got.
There's another
hundreds.
There's
We've
hundreds.
got loads. We've got loads.
This is,
CF.
we need these hops.
Well, so the pelleting, actually, it was the first. I mentioned it was the first time we've pelleted such small volumes.
Yeah.
So we're just investing in some equipment to do it ourselves. Last year, I contracted out to a pilot processing plant that does other things like cattle food and things, and that they produce the pellets that you got. They weren't bad considering they were produced on an experimental kit. So we've invested in a kit, or we are investing in a kit to do the same thing, and that will give us a bit more opportunity to do more and some of these smaller volumes. So it might be, this year I've got 90 different plots in the ground, so it's essentially 90 at the same stage that 302 is. So we'd be delighted for you to have a go with some more.
We will brew with whatever you send
Sign
us,
me
mate.
up.
Yeah,
Hello.
Yeah.
it's been it has been really cool, especially with this one.
This is the thing. Reiki's just said it. You have a resource at your fingertips, and that is the home brewing community of the UK. And there are a lot of us who are just crazy enough to brew with whatever you send us, and we will probably brew our favorite type of beer, and we will make it. And we're all set up, pretty much most of us, to be able to send out beer mail. So, you send us the hops, we'll brew the beer, we'll send you cans, we'll get you on, we'll sit down, we'll talk about them. And if it helps you guys to produce better hops, that's a win for you. And the win for us is, it's like anything, we get something a little bit special to play with. And that's kind of all it comes down to. We just want to help you to make better stuff because it benefits us.
Homebrew is all about experimentation and learning. So it's the heart of what you guys are trying to do.
Exactly.
They will massively embrace this.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, there's more going to come through. I can promise you that. Reiki and I will continue the dialogue. It's been very good anyway. We've always had good chats. The level of investment that some of you guys are making on relatively small pieces of brewing equipment is just phenomenal, and the level of detail. I mean,
it's an addiction.
Yeah,
it's an absolute
honestly,
addiction.
It's humbling that you put so much into it, and that you take our product and do something so special with it.
Do you know what the bottom line is?
We feel properly privileged to be able to do this, and to also get your time, and for you to show us around the fields. So no,
very much
seriously,
so.
we totally appreciate what you've given us here.
Yeah, well, ultimately, we've only got 45 hop growers left in the UK. and seriously, we need to give them stuff to grow that will give them a livelihood for their future, for their kids, what have you. It's a worrying time in British hop growing, so this level of optimism is really, really appreciated, and don't worry, there'll be more coming. We'll get it set up for you. I like this. It's good.
Have you seen the film Field of Dreams?
Yes.
If you send it, we will brew
it.
That's it.
We want those hop farmers to be there, Will. We want those hop farmers to be there for like decades to come. It's like we want there to be a reason that people are buying British hops, and we want them to brew with British hops. We'd rather they were growing hops than growing solar plants.
Reiki, it's not a want. It's not even a want. At this point in time, it's a need. We need British hops because they give us so much variety. New Zealand hops, as much as I love them, everything tastes of lime. I love lime in beer. However, everything tastes of lime. American hops, everything's turned up to the absolute nth degree. We need some British hops to bring some clarity to the hop world. And more importantly, there's a lot of people whose livelihoods are relying on this. And we're all making beer. We're all going to make beer, mainly because we don't like paying the government tax. But we're going to make beer. It's cheap. I can make a beer I make it like 4 feet the other side of the wall that's just there. It gets fermented in a fridge just there, and it gets kegged and put into a kegerator just there.
Local.
Do you know what I mean? It's local. There's no beer miles on my beer, except for you transporting the hops up to me. That's it. And the malt, and occasionally the yeast. I say occasionally, but it is occasionally. And it all comes down to the fact that if you're producing hops like this, which 3 different styles, 3 different flavor profiles, I mean, what more could you want? What more could you want?
Chicky's beer.
I'm having a moment. Here. Don't make me open this beer. I'm having a moment.
Waxing lyrical.
Anyway,
I think you're right, Chris.
Don't deny me my moment.
10 years ago, you wouldn't have dreamt that we could produce, melon and nectarine flavors from a British hop. You would have probably laughed. What are you messing around at? But it is possible. We can do it. And not only that, we can do it in a more environmentally sustainable way. So we're on it. Don't worry.
And a maritime climate.
So just talking about those different flavour descriptors.
Reading my mind, Will.
I've got a way for us to quantify some of that for my beer, which is something I do with the hop tester beers that we do.
Here we go.
There is a link.
Are you giving us an exam, are you?
No, well, yeah, there are some questions for you to answer. So there's a link in the private chat if you go to the right hand side, and if you follow that, there's a Google form. So if you haven't already got my beer, which is the one in the glass bottle, yep. So the Golden Ale CF302.
Tasteful cap.
Give that one, thought you'd like that. Give that one a go while you're pontificating on that beer. Obviously, there's a few questions in terms of rating it for different descriptors, and that will generate some little graphs for us that we can look at shortly. But
you can tell as a teacher, can't you?
I'll tell you about the beer itself. So it is fairly similar.
Can I just clarify? Do we have to give you a medal at the end of this?
No, that's okay.
He doesn't do anything.
I know you like winning stuff, Rich.
A rosette or a medal.
So yeah, this is I slightly changed up the base recipe I normally use for the hop testers and made it a little bit of a lighter kind of golden ale base. I've actually it's fairly similar to the Murgy Straight recipe from Four Priests, because I thought that was a really good showcase for a relatively modest amount of hops in that beer. So I thought I'd use his kind of grist or close to his grist for this. And the CF302, I used a little bittering charge of Columbus, but only like 7 grams at 60 minutes, so wouldn't really contribute any particular flavour, but we've got CF302, 10 grams at 15, 10 grams at 5 minutes, 35 grams in a whirlpool for 30 minutes, and then 45 grams in the dry hop, and it's fermented with Liberty Bell M36, which again, I thought I'd just change it up from the usual USO5 to that, and I'm kind of quite pleased I did actually. I really like the way the yeast has worked out with this one. So that's the beer, kind of sort of golden ale-ish. But I think that the hops have come through quite well on it, so I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. What are you guys getting on the flavour? Not to steer you too much on the questionnaire that you're going to fill in, but what are your thoughts at the moment?
Tricky, stop talking and let us drink. Jesus.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm getting pretty similar sort of vibes as mine and Chris's.
Yeah.
That green peppers ramps up, but I don't know if that's because we changed gears with Rake's Defoe's beer, and we've come back to this. But you get that green pepper melon thing.
Yep.
You're getting the pithy thing.
Just to clarify, do I score green pepper under spicy?
It's more pithier.
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah. Herbally spice, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe herbal rather than spicy, I would say.
Will's doing his first bit of homework in a few years, I'm telling you. That's what he's doing.
So just for the benefit of you, the people listening or even watching that are wondering what's going on at the minute, so I've sent these guys a little form, Google Sheets form that will generate some data for us, and there's two sections, one on aroma. They're rating the overall aroma potency out of 10, and then they're giving a rating out of 10 for the following descriptors, which are garlicky, onion, earthy or grassy, floral, citrus, tropical, stone fruit, berry, pine/woody, herbal and spicy. And then basically repeating the same questions again for flavour, overall flavour potency, and then the same set of descriptors, but also I've added a couple of questions to the last time you did this, so I've put in a bit of text for 3 words you would use to describe this hop, which I thought would be interesting, just to generate some more descriptors that maybe aren't the sort of general ones that we've got there under each section, and an overall rating for your enjoyment of the hop flavour and aroma. So hopefully you're making some progress through the homework task you've been set.
Thanks, Tricky.
I'm sure you're all enjoying that. It's
Don't want to be given a detention.
Everyone's looking studious. Eyes down, quiet please. I've got this set up so it will generate a couple of radar graphs for the flavour profile.
Tricky.
And a couple of other diagrams there as well.
Quick question about the software. Do I need to use commas when I'm describing the hop, or do I not?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to try and get that to generate like a word cloud thing, but my talent with Google Sheets ran out at that point. So I'll just probably look at them on the spreadsheet and give you some of the highlights for that bit.
Just to warn you, my burger and fries has just arrived.
Oh, okay. Well, priorities.
We don't frown upon eating during the podcast.
It's been done many times before, to be fair.
No, it's a nice beer, Tricky. I think it's a great showcase for the hop. Just carries a little bit more weight. I think actually putting it into a slightly bigger bodied, slightly higher ABV, I think works nicely.
I'm getting more floral out of Tricky's than I was out of yours, mine, or even
I
the Malt
think
Miller.
there's a lot of floral notes in this as well.
Yeah, I think the extra alcohol sort of carries that floral flavour through quite nicely. It's not something I'd really noted in the previous beers, the floral nature, but I definitely put it down as some of the characteristics on Richard's form.
So I think we can say that the things that are contributing that flavour are slightly more polar than they would be because they're not being dissolved in the water, they're being dissolved in the alcohol.
Am I allowed to put 4 rather than 3 words to describe this hop?
If you want.
No, you get disqualified, mate.
Or do I get detention?
Yeah,
Does the
no,
last one begin with a C and end with a T to describe tricky?
Tricky got disqualified on the identifiable cap. So
I have
Yeah.
to say,
Schoolboy, that one.
this beer that Tricky's made tastes not completely different, but significantly different to mine. Significantly
No.
different.
I was going to say, actually, this is very similar to yours in the way the hop is delivered. As in, when you compare it to what we were drinking in terms of what we produced,
That
which
is
was much
very
more
similar, yeah.
Mandarin, I think this has that more like lemony, citrusy, that berry, that green pepper. It's very close to yours in terms of hop presentation.
I'm getting a lot more of kind of the floral, and it's almost overpowering compared to mine, which I think was a little bit more fruity.
Chris, can you go if you got it side by side?
No,
I've gone side by side.
mine's
Go grab-
long gone. Mine's
no,
long
I've
gone.
I've got
I've got a
side by
burger
side.
to eat, man.
Yeah, I think.
One's a lot warmer than the other, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm.
So we've got the results are in. Do you want to see what it's come up with?
Nah.
Let's see if we can... Nah, not bothered. Not interested.
I'd say they're almost identical in aroma.
Right, this is how much I get taken a piss out of during a podcast, right? This is Luke's latest comment when I said I'd ordered a burger. There you go.
A1 Wagyu burger with potato
Yep,
sauce,
Luke,
good amount of
it is not extinct.
fried in the oil of some extinct vegetable cedar.
Everything else is true, but it's not extinct.
So
Right.
there's our radar graph for aroma. And I think this we've said throughout that we're all kind of getting quite a few different notes, and it's kind of reflected on there that there's not one thing that's kind of dominant, I guess, on the flavors, but we're all kind of scoring, or between us, there's quite high scores for berry, stone fruit, tropical, citrus, and floral, which are all fairly
Can we just
similar.
clarify for Thomas that actually when we're talking about green pepper, we're talking about peppercorns rather than
Good
green
point. Yeah,
peppers as in...
yeah.
Yeah.
So herbals come up a little bit higher as well, 5.33, a little bit for spicy, not much for the pine, and 0 for garlic and onion, which Will's probably quite pleased that that's scoring low on that one. And then on the flavour, pretty similar, but maybe a little bit higher. So stone fruit averaging 6, tropical coming through a bit higher as well. So I think tropical's the highest scoring one there on the flavour. Floral's quite high again. A little bit of the earthy, grassy notes on there. And again, 0 for garlic and onion. Way. So,
interestingly,
then-
you're saying 0 for garlic and onion, though, Rich. When we went
Yep.
to the Aroma Fest a few months ago, there was a hop on that table, which I just literally had to tap Will on the shoulder and say, "This is onion and garlicky. This is galaxy. Please grow this. I've got an order here. Please grow it."
onion garlic in a nice way for that one, though, yeah.
In a nice way, yeah. Very galaxy it was. It was absolutely stunning.
Almost any hop will produce onion and garlic if you let it get ripe enough.
Ah,
Interesting.
Okay.
there you
Indicator
go.
of ripeness.
So overall, in terms, so that's potency scores for aroma and flavour, which are coming out at 6.5 and 6.66. But the overall enjoyment
Yeah.
rating 8.5. So I would say that's pretty positive feedback there, Will, for that one. I think that's got to be pleased with that, right?
It's very good. Yeah, very pleased with that. Thank you.
No worries. Let me just skip back to because, like I said, I didn't figure out a way to generate anything with the text entries. But as far as descriptors that people have put in, so we've got floral tangerine, melon green pepper, pepper juice, berry, melon green, Let me just expand that a little bit. Green pepper. So green pepper's coming out quite a lot again. Melon, nectarine, floral. So I think melon seems to be the one that everyone comes back to consistently with this hop. I think that's been mentioned with pretty much all the beers to an extent. Nectarine has come up a few times, and also this green pepper note seems to probably be the other one behind melon, I think. Floral as well. So yeah, interesting. I think there's some consistency there, but also quite a wide range of different things coming through for people at the same time.
So yeah, anyway, it's been called Melanie.
It is. It's looking closer, isn't it?
Will, you do realise this is the level of data analysis that you'll get as well.
This is great. This saves me a job.
You get to play golf and everything.
Just send it over, Rich, please.
Yeah, I'll pop it over to you. I'll get a few more people to fill it out as well, so you get a little bit of a bigger data set for it. But yeah, I'll send it to you at some point.
No, it's very, very good.
Anyway, that's it. I'm done now. Lesson's over, guys. You can go home now.
Amazing. Last beer.
So, what's on the burger, Chris?
Oh, he's away.
No, Chris, don't just turn us off. We want to know what the burger is.
So the burger is a smelter burger from Bear Kitchen, which has got jalapenos, bacon, mayonnaise, cheese, some sort of salad, but it's also got their house sauce. You're going to ask me to lift it up now, aren't you?
That's it.
Hang on.
He can't even get his hands around it.
Oh, my God.
Look at that.
Absolute Phil. Love it.
Oh. It's
Phil,
a Phil's burger, that is for sure.
That is a proper dirt burger.
Yeah, we're not messing about here.
Did you?
Are you going to turn the camera off and then switch over to your OnlyFans to watch people
That's
pay
the one.
to eat these?
Mukbang, mate. Mukbang.
Oh, I'm salivating at the look of that. Jeez.
I've got to admit, it smells amazing. So, yeah, I'll be back in a few.
Incredible.
Oh, wow.
Outrageous.
Yeah, totally. Oh. Right. Shall I ask some questions, Tricky?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have tried growing hops at home now, Will, okay? So I have got a Fuggles plant that I've grown that is an absolute beast. I think that's me now 6 years having it. And so the first few years, it's like you get a couple of cones, you get, I don't know, like some silly little amount of cones off it. And then all of a sudden it becomes, you're getting like 2 kilos or something off it, sort of dried. And so it's, and then I've now also started growing some Saz as well. I've got 3 Saz plants growing as well. So I think off the whole back of, you couldn't get Saz, I was like, oh, I'll just buy some Saz. So what I want to know is what is the best way for me to look after these plants? And I'm thinking as well as fertilizer, that sort of thing. And just any tips for the home brewer wanting to grow hops at home? And I'm in Scotland as well, which is probably a very challenging environment for hops, but yeah.
Yeah, look, downy mildew is going to be your enemy up in Scotland. The other thing that you've got to contend with is daylight length.
Yeah.
So the hops life cycle's governed by daylight length. So being further north, your trigger daylight length for your hops will be further away from the longest day. And so if I were you, the further north you are, you want to get the hops trained up early. So some tips for growing, fertilizer wise, you can use a Growmore 777, which is a balanced fertilizer. That's pretty good. My favorite would be, so historically hops on this farm where I grew up, everyone had a beef herd, beef cattle, and they were prepared to lose money on the beef cattle because they provided the fertilizer for the hops. So FYM, farmyard manure, with lots of straw in it. If if you can't get hold of that, because it is, I mean, it's quite valuable nowadays to get hold of farmyard manure. There are lots of places that have sort of horse manure. You can get, but mix it with some straw if you can, and get it outside. Allow the frost to get to it to break it down before you put it directly onto the hops, because otherwise you might suffer with some difficulties. As I said, Growmore 777 will work, but my view is that traditional fertilizers are better and more balanced than artificial fertilizers. So when the shoots come out of the ground in the spring, take away the strongest 2 or 3 and train the next ones that come, but only train between 4 and 6 that come out of the rhizome, because you want the plant to concentrate its energies on those. The first 2, when the hop was growing, that they originated into forestry and forests and sort of that sort of area. The first wires are shoots, by the way. Sorry, that's what we call the first shoots that come out, is wires. So the first wires that come out, their job was to get to the top of the canopy and get the plant to photosynthesize. And they don't really bear much fruit. They might a little, but if you take away the first ones out, the next ones that come are the fruit bearing ones. So you'll get a better crop out of those. I would try to make sure they're not too thick, and you can pull off laterals and leaves. That's fine. They'll cope with that quite well. The Chinese actually they used to have a labour law on their hop growing, and in August they would cut off all the leaves on the whole vine, and they would get enormous crops, because if you get sunshine on the hop vine, you'll get a much bigger crop. So you can do a little bit of that if you want more. If you want a massive crop, that's the way to do it. Things like aphid, you probably don't get much aphid that far north, I wouldn't have thought, but certainly some of the people trying to grow them in England and Wales will get some aphid. You can use soft soap that you get from your local garden centre. Really douse the plant in it. The idea of that is actually to sort of drown the aphids, and if you get any red spider mite, you don't normally see them a great deal in hops that are growing in hedgerows, but you will in hops that are propagated commercially. So I would imagine that people that are growing hops at home will also see some red spider mite. You want to take away the lower leaves once they've got to about 4 feet tall. Take away the first 2 feet of leaves coming up the vine, to try and reduce any risk. That helps reduce powdery mildew as well. If you're finding that you do have problems with powdery and downy, what you can do in the spring before they emerge, you take the earth away from the hill, if you like, the rhizome, and you trim the top of the rhizome. So those the curls of the plant will hold that disease, and you cut those off with a knife, and you can get a much cleaner plant going forwards from that. Okay, is that giving you some pointers?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, really, really good. Yeah, no, it's good.
And if you get stuck and you don't know what the problem is, send a picture over to Reiki, and he'll WhatsApp me. And if I can't tell you what it is, I've got people who can tell you.
No, that's really cool. Spot on.
All right,
Andy, I would say from my experience of growing hop plants, get permission from the other half or whoever you share the garden with, and your neighbours, because I planted like 3 rhizomes a few years ago, and it took me 2 years to get them out of the garden. And my wife said, "I don't like those." And not in my garden anymore, but they're in 2 of my neighbours' gardens.
Oh, we do hop harvest as a family. So,
You're good
so
then.
I've got the kids picking hops and the missus. We all pick the hops, and then I did a wet was it the wet hop brew sort of thing with the fuggles.
Yeah.
So I did 5 points with all the wet fuggles, and yeah, it's class.
Nice.
If you're struggling
how
to
do
dry
you
them,
dry them out at home? Yeah, that's where I was going to go next. How do you dry them at home?
Well, if you dry them out, how do I dry them? If I want to store them, so what I did was I just put them in a big grain bag, and then I just had the fan blowing on them.
so my advice would be to there are a few ways, and we have designed a mini kiln to dry the hops. You can use a little fan heater with an Inkbird type arrangement, just to make sure. You want to heat it up to about 55 degrees air temperature. You don't want it much hotter than that. But to be honest,
I thought you were going to say air fryer.
Yeah,
Air
just
fryer,
crisp them up.
dehydrate.
Smash him in the Ninja. It'll be fine. Be a few batches, wouldn't it, Andy?
yeah.
I've seen those kind of like, if you
I just
search
did-
for something drying something else at home, you can get those like almost looks like a fishing net with different shelves in. And
Yeah.
you can just hang them up and dry on that. I think people are growing other plants. I don't know. I don't get it.
Other herbaceous plants. You can
That's the
also. So I find actually a car works really well if you leave the windows shut in late September, but you put them across your dashboard on some newspaper. They'll dry out really, really well. And conservatories work quite well as well.
You get stopped. And like someone says, "What's that herbal smell in your car?" I've been drying hops all winter.
Pure garlic.
I'm not being
I've
funny.
got an excuse.
You guys have got nothing. I got stopped driving back from a mate of mine's with a kilo of lactose on the passenger seat.
Boom! Chris is back.
That burger was fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, it looked insane.
There was a lot of candied chilies in it. It was great. Sorry, go on, Will. Go on.
That's fine. Yeah, conservatories, spread them out really thinly, and they'll dry out in a conservatory or underneath a car windscreen.
I've got a
What's the
conservatory,
ideal temperature to kind of dry them at, Will?
50,
55, 60 degrees C. You don't want them in too thick a bed because they'll start to compost. They'll do that pretty quickly, but 55, 60 degrees C is what we aim at. We normally aim, well, you start off hotter and then we bring the temperature down as you get closer, but that should
Because obviously measuring moisture at home when you're growing them at home is a tricky thing to do.
So the point at which to stop drying them is when the strig in the middle gets crispy, because the strig, the central part of the hop, is a bit woodier and it holds onto the moisture a bit more sort of tenaciously. Airing cupboard works brilliantly, yes, Luke. If you've got one and your better half doesn't mind absolutely reeking of hops for a while. Mine has to put up with all sorts of stuff, so she doesn't mind me putting hops in there. But most dehydrated will work,
though, don't they?
Well, yes, I'm around.
Putting them in the airing cupboard is a great idea.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You don't want them to oxidize, though. So yeah, the strig, it will start off. It'll be very malleable, so you can bend it really easily. You want to get it to the point where it actually snaps. That's the point at which you've reached optimum dryness. It should be about 8% when you do that.
Right. That
Perfect.
sounds good.
Thanks, Will. That was useful advice.
Yeah,
Can I
top
just
tips
say
there.
that I've already started on Andy's beer.
Yeah, I followed your lead, Chris, because I saw you cracked it open.
Chris,
Yeah,
is that really
can
dark?
see,
Or is it just me?
It's just you, mate. The light's there, so it's shining towards it rather
I was
than
like,
shining
that looks
through
like
it.
a black IPA. Yeah, it's
Will's
really
got
dark.
a dry throat, so we definitely need to crack this beer.
I'll be honest with you,
Oxidized, mate. Oxidized.
I'm quite liking
Drain
this
pour.
beer. I'm quite liking this one.
Total drain pour.
And
Ricky's
after
looks
that,
fine.
yeah, that's the same sort of colour as
Oh,
mine is.
right.
After that burger, I needed something, so I've just kind of crushed Andy's beer. I'm sorry.
That looks really dark, Tricky.
It's well, again, to be fair, it's looking way darker on the camera than what it actually is. Hang on, let me.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh.
Don't worry, Andy. It's not that bad.
There you go, Andy.
It's-
It's all
If
right.
it makes you feel better, Andy, there you go.
So mine's is totally different, I think.
Mm.
I don't know why it's looking so dark on the camera, but yeah.
I think we should let Will and Reiki take the lead on this once Andy's given us some vital statistics of
It
it.
is different.
Totally.
Come on, Andy, tell us about the beer. What is the beer?
So it's the right. Okay, right. Let's get the. It was 3.65 kilos of Dingerman's Pilsner, 320 grams of Carapils, and 320 grams of flaked wheat. Right, and I did a 20-litre batch because I wanted to reduce the amount of because normally I do 23-litre batch, so I took it down to 20, so I could maximise that 100 grams. It was then what I did was I bittered with Simcoe for 11 grams of Simcoe at 60 minutes, right, to get the bitterness. And then what I did was 50 grams in a whirlpool at 85C for an hour. So this is what I would call the C-bomb arbor kind of method. It's like you get so much sort of flavour from the hop. Yeah. And but you do carry a little bit of bitterness with that, but I find you get loads of flavour when you do it. And then I did a 50-gram dry hop, and it was saturated yeast. And I think after about 4 days or so, I actually dry hop. So I actually dry hop during active fermentation as well. It was 20 degrees C. It was fermented at. And yeah, and I dry hopped at that temperature as well. So yeah,
Like a warm
Is this
dry hop.
just CFVO2, or was there did you say there was another hop in there?
yeah, Simcoe at 60, 11 grams to get 20 IBUs, and then so the water profile. What I did was it's 80 calcium and it's 152 chloride to 44 sulfate, but what I did was I added cannon salt, 3 grams of cannon salt at 10 minutes in the boil to try and get a bit more
It's much softer than you'd expect.
softer, yeah, and that helps with that big sort of whirlpool sort of, or the extended whirlpool at 85.
Definitely getting that
Okay.
dryness and saturated.
Can I just say to everybody, I just need a nod or a shake on this, okay? Because I don't want to influence you too much.
Oh,
Who else
I
is
know.
getting an absolute metric shitload of citrus from this?
Yeah, in terms of lemon citrus, like lemon sherbet.
Lemon.
I get
Straight up fucking lemon. That's all I'm getting.
banana, like
I'm
crazy
getting a
amount,
bit of a banana. thing.
No.
like green banana.
Mm.
The best bananas.
I've got a little
Ooh.
bit of banana on there. I'm getting a lot of that red candy fruit we were talking. That sort of strawberry lace thing going
Mhm.
on.
I'm getting a lot of lemon, a lot of strawberry. I'm getting quite a lot of that red currant thing.
Yeah,
It's really weird.
I'm getting
It's
straight
most
up
different for me.
red strawberry lace.
it's really it's got a bigger bitterness, hasn't it?
It's quite a different
Definitely something
flavour
more than what was in
profile.
Chris's beer.
Definitely a different flavour profile. But I do wonder if that's the
Yeah.
combination of the Simcoe plus the hour-long whirlpool.
I think there's a little bit of Simcoe flavour carryover in this, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that kind of cat piss.
Yeah. I didn't want to
You
say it,
normally get
Reiki,
from
because he was ripping the
Simcoe.
piss out of me, but yeah.
That's what you get from Simcoe. You get that cat piss. It's kind of smell and taste of it. Not that I've drunk cat piss. I think it just adds that
Important
kind of
caveat.
that herbal kind of green peppery stuff. It kind of adds
Yeah.
that. I think the Simcoe does that.
Yeah, I think it's more brings the more the herbal, slightly spicy thing coming out on this one. Maybe.
I'll be honest with you, Andy. I don't think you should have used the Simcoe. I don't, genuinely. There's a lot of this beer's flavour, and I'm getting way more of that kind of herbal alcohol kind of. Oh God, I don't want to say it because it's going to sound horrific. I'm getting more of that kind of phenolic kind of thing from this beer than I was from any of the others.
But you used a bit of
Yeah,
wheat.
but I think
didn't
that's
you?
from the Simcoe.
Yeah, maybe.
But you used some wheat as well, didn't you? I'm
Yeah,
definitely
flaked
getting getting a bit of that wheaty bite to it.
It's a strange beer. I'm not sure if I like it.
I
It's
like
not
it, but
undrinkable. It's good.
I think there
Chris
are
trying to
some-
make the end of the podcast as awkward as possible here. That's good work.
I'm not trying to make it awkward. I'm just saying, basically, based on the fact that I'm getting those phenolics within this beer, I'm just not entirely
To be
sure.
fair,
if
Reiki
it's-
called cat piss first, so I think he was the instigator.
I think I blame the Simcoe. Look, all the
Yeah.
other beers haven't had cat piss, have they? So
No.
I'm not saying that I get cat piss, but I do get some. There's some Simcoe-y notes in the background that I would say we haven't picked up
Yeah.
on the other beers, if you like.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that.
A couple of you. Go on, carry on.
I'm not saying that 302 doesn't have some of those characteristics, perhaps, but it would be unusual because there've been some really neutral bases behind that for us suddenly to be picking up those Simcoe characteristics would be a bit of a surprise to me.
Who else used Simcoe in their beer? Was that a Euro in?
No.
Or
No,
Oh,
one-
I
Chris
had
used- Chris
Columbus
used
as
Magnum.
bittering.
Yeah, Rich used
Yeah.
Columbus, Addy used Simcoe.
I
think
that
it's more
could
the
be an
phenolics.
advantage with this hobby. Yeah, if you want that Simcoe taste, maybe this is the hop to kind of boost that flavour of Simcoe. Yeah, all hops play differently together, and it's one of those things
Definitely.
you just need to go and play around with and experiment. Who knows? If you want that Simcoe taste, maybe this is the hop to do that.
I think I would agree with that. I think for me, like I'm enjoying the beer on the aroma. I think the aroma's nice,
Yeah, stunning aroma.
really
Still
good.
get the melon on the aroma as well.
Yeah, I'm getting that as well. And the flavour's growing on me. Initially, the flavour was, I don't know,
Totally weird. Yeah.
slightly juxtaposed.
I think it's thrown
guess.
everyone a little bit because it is quite so different to the other beers that have come before it.
it's
Yeah,
a real
I
fucking
sort of-
curveball, Andy. Cheers, mate.
Yeah.
I
No,
didn't know
no
what
worries.
to make of the flavour. The flavour was a bit like, initially, when I first tasted the beer, I thought, that's got a little bit of acetaldehyde in it. But I don't think it was. And it's
No,
not.
I think that's Simcoe.
No, it's not. I had the
there's-
same thought. I had exactly the same thought, but it is the Simcoe that's doing that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
kinda
okay,
like-
so
Chris, did you?
It's matter 60
Chris,
minutes.
did you use Simcoe?
1,000 gram.
I use Magnum.
No?
Chris definitely didn't use Simcoe.
No. Clearly, you've not been listening to the podcast if you reckon I use Simcoe, Reiki.
No, it's been going on for like almost like an hour and a half now, so I've kind of lost track. But
I think it
No,
just, it
I'm
just does-
not a Simcoe fan.
It sort of has like a deeper herbaceous flavour.
Yes. I would say it's more weedy.
Yeah.
It's more weedy.
It's herbaceous, slightly verging on weedy. probably a little bit of that campusy bit from Simcoe.
Yeah. But weirdly enough, I'm getting amplified tropical notes. Weirdly, I'm picking up pineapple from this that I wasn't picking up from any of the other beers. And I don't know if that's just the leftover from the Simcoe or not.
But how, it's like
I get that. I get that.
60-minute boil in the Simcoes. Like, there's got to be. Don't forget, I did like a big whirlpool on this as well.
Yeah, but
like,
that's the wonderful thing about hops, man. If you use them at 60 minutes, they still give some flavor and some aroma. And I reckon the pineapple, because it's really fleshy, super ripe pineapple that I'm getting. I reckon that's coming from the Simcoe. I don't think that's got fuck all to do with 302. I reckon that's purely the Simcoe.
I think the Simcoe's overpowering it on this. And yes, I get the pineapple, like you're saying. It's like that Brew 1 type of taste.
But Simcoe's like normally like a tangerine sort of.
Who's to say
but the
with
two together,
302 though?
It's certainly interesting the way the
Will could be doing a blend.
I love Will with his politician. It's really interesting the way they've interacted. I agree with you completely, Will. Yeah. It is very interesting. It's fucking. This is chemistry in a glass, people. It's fucking ace.
You know that there are people who swear by first wort hopping, and maybe you've just achieved that, Andy. You've locked in those flavors and aromas from your early boil hops. Either it's the Simcoe or there's more going on in 302 than we had picked up on the other hops. I like it. I like that pineapple-y character's amazing. I wasn't expecting it.
There's Verdant's next beer when they actually get round to using 302.
Even cats need water.
Even cats need water.
Do you know what it tastes
Luke,
like?
I think they use Magnum.
That would be amazing if they brought that out.
They don't use Simcoe for bittering anymore. I think they use more Magnum.
Can I just say...
Nobody uses Simcoe for bittering.
Nobody with a brain, anyway.
It's Siren that uses the Simcoe, I'm sure.
Has anybody
I think that's just because of their contract.
Jack Daniel's honey liqueur? Because that's what this tastes like.
No.
It tastes like Jack Daniel's honey liqueur.
You're throwing out so many different flavors now, Chris. I don't know what's going on.
I've got a bottle of it.
You lost me when you said the word liqueur.
What was in that burger?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's
lots of chili.
Be
I'll be honest with you.
Burger
did you say they were candied jalapenos?
Yeah, what vape juice are you vaping, Chris?
At the moment, I'm on plain, so I've got a bottle that's literally just plain. There's no flavour in it.
Candied jalapeno.
I'm waiting for this shit to finish so I can smash back into the what is it? The iced bloodlust, which is sweet orange and watermelon.
See, this for me was melon and banana, like a kind of green banana type thing.
I think it was, the melon was still there. I did get that little banana note, and there was a lot of the green spicy pepper thing on it too as well. So it was, it actually, that's just made me think. That to me tasted a little bit more like it was kind of like an Equinox hopped beer.
Yeah.
That's a good shout, Rich. Yeah, that's a good shout.
That's what you get.
It's a mixed bag type of hop.
Yeah.
Equinox super green pepper.
Excuse me, sorry, I thought I was muted.
I definitely think that is the Simcoe that's kind of overpowering it. That's doing that because obviously our beer was single hopped with VO2, and you can easily define that hop when it's on its own. But when you combine it with others, it's like Chris says, it's like infinite times infinity type of thing. It's so many experimentations you can do with this hop and how it plays with others.
Yeah.
That's it. And maybe the Simcoe as a boil edition just leaves a bit more in than like the Columbus that I used and that interacts with the 302 and does something
it's crazy
totally different.
This is absolutely crazy.
Andy's beer had a little bit more of a slightly more aggressive flavour than a lot of the other beers.
It's in your face. It's definitely in your face.
Rake's beer, and it's and I think actually the other Showcase 302 beers we've got, it's a much calmer hop flavour.
Yeah,
So I think it's the
302 is the hero
Simcoes.
on those.
Yeah, I think the Simcoe's just bringing a little bit more aggression.
Definitely.
You went too big, Andy. That's your problem. Man. You just went
11 grams.
You just pushed the envelope too far.
11
calm,
grams.
mate.
Yeah.
11
You
grams
can't-
and 20 litres.
Yeah.
Okay, Andy.
You wouldn't think
Andy,
it would
there's
make
no
that much
way,
of a
That's
difference,
not a
would you?
lot. That's
Andy,
like
there's no
Yeah,
way
it's
you
not
can push the
massive.
foreskin back this far, man.
that's why
Oh,
that's
no,
why
he had to get it in, didn't he?
that's
You
why
can't
I'm
do it.
thinking. That's why I think because 85C Whirlpool does crazy stuff for 60 minutes, right? And that's why I'm like, some of the Simcoe might be playing, but there's a like when you Whirlpool, when you do C-Bomb or you do like I've done it with Equinox and all that, it just pulls this crazy flavour out. It just extracts so much more flavour.
You'll be
From a
pulling
hop.
out some of the stuff that's less soluble. That's the thing. So that's probably why it changes so much. Is you know, with time, you'll pull some of that stuff out which normally wouldn't be pulled out, and you know, some of those polyphenols as well.
I'm just reading the comments. It's just like what you're saying. It's just like, yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
It's going off in the comments section.
Yeah.
So
I can't even say it.
Yeah,
Probably
well,
best
well,
not to be honest.
welcome to the
Yeah.
lunacy that is live chat on our videos, Reiki.
I think we might have hit the point where we've all got through 5 beers, and
Yeah.
I'm still getting Jack Daniel's honey liqueur whenever I'm drinking this beer.
Chris's palate is definitely gone.
Look,
those candied chilies.
they were
got to your
very
head,
good,
mate.
though, I have to say. If ever you're in Wakefield, to make a visit to Bear Kitchen, say hello to Bear, and order the burger that I had tonight, because that was a banger.
Well,
Does
I've got
sound
This is-
I've got Geordie's Candied Jalapenos. Lance Blackman, who we all kind of know, he makes these at home, and he's going to send me a jar.
He's a good
And,
Yorkshire
yeah,
lad.
Oh,
He's a
Good
good lad.
Yorkshire lad
Love
is
Lance.
Lance.
I'll have to encourage him to put some of those
That's
on
up to
beer mail for
Lance.
sure.
I do believe that Lance will be listening to this. He's now a part of our little Brewers chat on Facebook. So, yeah.
I'm hoping he's watching or listening, or he'll come back to it. But he's also a Patreon of you guys, and we all love Lance.
He's on the piss, to be fair. He's not at work until 3:20 on Monday morning. So, yeah, this is Andy. This beer's weird.
I thought that, but it grows on
Keeps
you.
Going back to it.
It does
Yeah,
go on you.
it's like a
It
It does
fungus.
go on you.
I'm pouring more
Actually-
out. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I'm drinking it.
Mate,
So-
I
Smashing
initially
it.
when I first drinking it, I was like,
What
yeah,
the hell?
this is weird. But then I got about half a glass through. I was like, I'm digging
Uh-huh.
this. I'm digging it.
No, I'm going to finish the glass because I'm tight and I'm from Yorkshire and I haven't paid for this. But it's a very, very weird beer compared to the other ones that we've had tonight. Even the
Yeah.
one from Reiki and Stiffo, the
Which is
beer
totally
itself,
different,
it was a different color, it was different malts, it was very different complexity.
But it
But
still
the
has that
flavours-
flavour.
Yes,
Flavour's
this
still-
is
yeah,
weird.
yeah.
This is
Totally
weird
different.
flavor wise. This is weird.
Yeah, so I'm getting the melon thing, but like apart from that, it's kind of like it goes somewhere
Yeah,
else.
it's very left field. It's a good one. What do you reckon then, Will? If you had to rank all the beers that we've had so far, which one's the best?
Oh, put him on the spot.
Oh, nothing like putting me on the spot.
Who's placing the orders, Will? Who's placing the orders?
Reiki's cranking the
I know.
Guilt trip.
turning the screws.
He has no
Yeah.
shame, does he?
No
I must
shame.
confess that even without his pushing, I do think that I could sit there and drink a lot of that beer. A lot of it.
The fact
You know,
that you
I
do
just
smash
sit
the
there.
can before you come on here.
Well,
Yeah, it's a
it
fair
helped,
point.
didn't it? it
Do
helped.
2 of them.
Oh, I needed a bit of a lubricant to start off with.
Well, always loved you,
Who-
still love you. Right answer.
The order will be in on Monday morning, Will.
Whose beer was the first beer? Was it Owen's beer, the first beer?
Yeah, that was Owen.
Yeah,
It was.
I must confess that I thought that was really, really good as well.
And
It's
Owen
certainly
nearly
a
didn't even
3.9.
send that out, by the way, because he was.
Well, I
worried
didn't get
about
it.
So
You'll have to
Sorry,
Monday
Ricky.
rate
Listen,
it.
there's
You got
2
something to look forward
bottles.
to.
There's 2 bottles on the way to you.
Monday
I've
breakfast beer.
No,
So
mate,
I've
I sent it on Wednesday. First class should have been there.
Royal Mail.
I have to say,
Yeah,
if I
Royal
had to
Foul.
rate a beer that was the best one out of the lot, it would be Owen's as well.
Really?
It almost
yeah.
had a martini kind of thing to it, and it was really nice.
It was so drinkable.
Martini.
I love martinis.
Yeah.
It was dry.
Smashable.
It was really nice.
I get dry. I don't know about martini.
You know,
No, yeah. Not sure about shaken, not stirred, please.
and I think out of the worst ones that we've had, out of a 330ml bottle, I've still got this left of Tricky's. So,
Well, there's no accounting for taste.
I'm just
Good
looking around my
touche.
table and I pretty much kind of
Touche.
finished most of them.
Yeah, I think what have I got left? I've got a bit of Andy's, bit of Tricky's, bit of Chris's.
I've literally got
Reiki's,
about.
yours gone.
I've got a
Tricky
mouthful
gets
of
the best-
Stiffos and Reiki's.
I've still got. Yeah.
Tricky gets the vote for best beer with a spreadsheet attached.
Yeah. Mine was the most data intensive.
You just love the
beer.
flavour wheel. You just love the fact he's giving you a flavour wheel to issue out.
Perfect. It's fantastic.
There you go, Tricky. You get a rosette for best spreadsheet.
There we go.
I'll take it. Anything for a rosette, you know me.
I've got to admit, the array of beers that we've had tonight, just the difference between them, considering it was the same hop,
Yeah.
and 3 of them were the same yeast. Weren't 3 of them all saturated? There was the Malt Miller,
Saturated.
Owen, and Andy was all
Yeah.
saturated. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. There was such a massive difference between those beers, and it just
The
goes to
fact
show
we've all
that,
interpreted, the fact we've all kind of interpreted and like decided routes to go with this hop. Brilliant! It's such a great experiment.
absolutely.
I think as a reflection, if we were to do it again, perhaps we might be a little bit more thoughtful in our beer style, because I think
Yeah. Well,
Chris,
similar.
and Tricky ended up making pretty similar beers. Although, like, 2 of them were lagers and mine was an ale. I think our hopping rates were pretty much exactly the same.
Oh, mine
was
was an
pretty-
ale as well, but
Okay,
Yeah,
fair
but
dues.
anyway.
I kind of quite like
they were
that.
pretty,
I kind
they
of
were
quite like
pretty
that.
similar.
I kind of quite like that you kind of know how to make a hop shine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like late boil edition, whirlpool, aroma, or dry hopping. You know how to make a hop shine. It's a common thing.
That's
But
true.
they're all different beer styles and different ratios. It's been really, really interesting that you kind of like you've taken a recipe that you like to brew and you've used this new hop that you know nothing about, which I think is also a really good, strong point to kind of drill home. It's like, brew what you know, brew what you love, and see how it performs, and experiment with these hops.
absolutely.
It's true. That and actually, on reflection, the way that we utilise the hops is probably very much like in our collective learning on. If you've got 100 grams of hops, how do you squeeze the most out of that 100 grams to get just
Exactly.
into the beer?
We get, we do quite a lot of brewing with commercial brewers with these experimental hops, and the first question everybody asks is, what beer do you want me to brew with them? And actually, my view is, you have your own creative ideas. You know, as Reiki said, you know how to get that hop to sing in the beer that you're producing, and it's not the same in every brewery. And actually, look, if we just wanted to produce an identikit beer, we could do that. The point is, how's it going to work in your brewery with your yeast, with your malt water profile, etc.? And how do you think you can utilize it best? And I think the contrast, for me, the contrast is far more valuable in all the different beer styles. Yes, the yeast was the same in 3 of them. They're all quite different beers.
Yep.
I think that is what actually shows me the value. It's really actually encouraged me about this hop, that it has it's actually got versatility, shall we say?
Yeah, and it produces different things in different circumstances and combined with different things.
We
like we're saying, like the
say it
cactusy
works in
things,
a English hopped lager, a bitter, a golden ale, a pale ale.
Best bitters than the winner.
It can do all of those for sure.
Yeah, and it's enjoyable. It's really enjoyable.
It's a great hop. It is.
Yeah.
I hope to God that you make that in massive, massive quantities. I really do. I don't want all of the good stuff going to the breweries, man. I don't. I want some of it to end up with the home brewers.
Namely Chris.
Namely me.
3 kilos in his freezer would be ideal, Will.
I
I'll beat Chris to it. I think that's where he was going.
I was actually going to go with the fact that for it's like distributed computing, okay? It was like SETI when it first came out. You could put one gigantic supercomputer on it and you're going to get one set of data. Or you can ask every single gamer around the world, when their computer's on screensaver, can you crunch these numbers as well? And that's ultimately what it comes down to for me. Distributed computing has always proven to be more beneficial to companies than using a gigantic supercomputer. And that's exactly what you're doing by getting the homebrewers involved. We are distributed computing.
I have to kind of jump in there. It's like, that is one of the things we love about working with Charles Farams. They embrace the homebrew community. They want to give us these experimental hops, like we've done this with you guys. They are massively on board with the homebrew community and working with us really closely, and just like giving you access to stuff that professional brewers get to use every day, and even stuff that they don't give to the professional brewers. Give it to the homebrewers first, because out of you homebrewers, there might be like 3 or 5% of you that are going to become professional brewers in the future. So if they buy Charles Faram's hops at this stage, they're going to buy them in the future.
Yeah,
it's an investment for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly the distributed computing model you use, Chris, certainly at this stage of the hops, it provides us with really useful data back. I would just say that when you go to commercialize a hop, it's very useful to have a commercial brewery to back that up, because they will back it up with contracts for years. So we need to use a model that embraces both, but we very much see home brewing as a very active and supportive thing in what we're doing, and we want to support you guys. This has been fantastic and enlightening and really encouraged me about this hop. Don't worry, there'll be more coming where this one came from.
For me, it wasn't a plug. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you've sent us out this hop, and we've loved the conversations that we've had about this hop. As with, I've just kegged it. This is what it tastes like right now. We've had all that discussion going off on our own little private chat. For me, it's more of by just to put it into a scale perspective, each one of us got 100 grams of this hop. We've taken that 100 grams of the hop and we've turned it into a beer that we've sent to, I sent to Reiki and to Stiffo. I've sent to you, Tricky. I've sent it to Andy, and I've sent it to Owen. I've still got I've probably got six,
quite a lot.
Just distribution wise, I've probably still got 16 litres in a keg.
Which
actually,
is
probably not, because I had some issues bottling it. I've probably got like 13 litres left in a keg.
I was going to say a lot of foam went into
there
that
was
bottling
a lot
process,
of foam. but the point is, I've now got the ability to maybe send out another 6 or 7 bottles to anybody, and they can try it as well, and they can give us their feedback. And yeah, I understand the commercial model has its benefits, because commercial utilization of hops is massively different to homebrew utilization of hops. I get that. But just having the ability with, let's say, 500 grams of hops to get 5 different beer styles, to get 5 different data sets, that's got to be massively beneficial to you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you've tasted them all. That's the best thing. You've tasted them all, Will.
I'm not complaining.
I didn't think you would.
Could be worse.
There's worse things to do on a Saturday night than drink 5 different beers and talk about them, isn't there?
So
I would be more than happy to repeat this and do this next year. You know,
Sounds
go
good
to
to
the
me.
field,
Yeah.
find something that we think sounds awesome. Well, let's get this
Pencil it in.
packaged up and get it out to the guys.
on that note, do we have anything in the fields that you can tell us about at the minute, Will, that is good prospects or stuff that's further along the journey than the hop we've
I'm
been
going to ask a
talking about
question that
tonight?
goes with that. Yeah, you actually, Will, there was one that you gave me a little sample of, and it was called Woof Woof.
K9.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
K9.
K9.
K9. Love it.
There will be a sample of it this forthcoming year. So yeah, we can do that one.
Can we get that?
Yeah.
Ray,
Seriously,
can we
mate,
get
this. So,
From
literally,
24 crop you can. Because
Will turned up at our place with this box, and he looked like a proper dealer. He got little baggies of all these little hops that he literally picks off the plants himself. And there was this one that had got a piece of tape on it. It says "Woof Woof," and I says, "What's that mean?" He says, "Oh, that's K9." So that's why we called it Woof Woof. That bag of very kind of stale hops is still in my drawer because I'm hoping to pick through it and find some dried seeds in there. This hop is just like boom. I want to get some of that, and I want to get that hop to you guys. And yeah.
It's the next generation.
Sorry. Are we put an order in for K9?
Yeah, so I got 700 grams from it this year, which we didn't pellet. I will have a few kilos from the 24 harvest, and we'll make sure you get some of that to play with. It's
nice.
So we're looking at
pretty
September,
special.
October
Proper
time?
new. This is like maybe like what, a dozen plants. It's like there's very limited volume on this.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's that sort of orders of magnitude. It will be end of November, December time.
We'll take it
brew,
leaf, Will.
boys.
We don't need to pellet it. Let's just take leaf.
It's about that size at the minute.
It's still on Will's windowsill. That's
Well,
what it is.
I had a question, kind of just playing on that as a foundation. What is there any hops you can tell us about that are very nearly close to being commercially released that people haven't heard of before, may have a name, may not have a name?
We've got nothing that's been named yet. We've got a couple that we're just planting up and will hopefully be available in commercial quantities next year. So I mentioned CF321. That's very it's got a bit of coconut, loads of passion fruit, peach, very tropical, quite different to 302. But along those same lines. The K9 that Reiki mentioned, we're accelerating that along as quickly as we possibly can, because I actually think that one will probably jump a few steps and will be brought to market sooner. Every year we feel like we make a 10 to 15% step forward on aroma intensity, and so the problem we have is that once a hop's been in the development cycle for 4 years or so, we know that we're getting new stuff coming through that is more intense than it. So there's a temptation to abandon that and move on with the next one. But there's a few that are in the pipeline. As I said, 321 looks to be quite interesting. CF310 also is another one that's really quite promising. That's got some of those Simcoe notes that we were pulling out of.
Andy would be able to use that with
Andy's
320.
Yeah, that one is it's always done extremely well in our aroma fests. Its parent got powdery mildew, so we're a little bit reluctant about that one. But it looks to be okay in the field, so we're going to push ahead with that. Basically, there's a huge number of plants. So if I knew which one was going to go forward completely and was absolutely sure, we'd already have named it by now. But
how do you split the hop plant? It grows, right, and you get a harvest from it. Then how do you cut that to then? How many can you cut that to then grow the next year's additional as you step it up?
Yeah, so there was a question on a second ago about splitting the rhizome. So traditionally what you would have done is you would have lifted the rhizome with a fork, and in the rhizome, they're a bit like a potato, but they've got the roots come out in fingers, and if you cut off about a 6-inch finger, if you like, we call those strap cuttings, and you can literally throw those in the ground, and the next year they will grow. They are really, really vigorous. So if you've got a plant and you want to propagate them around your garden, that's the way to do it. We don't do that because by doing that, you spread disease and any of the soil-borne diseases I was telling you about, like verticillium wilt. You can move that from one end of your farm to the other by doing that, which just is unacceptable. So we do something called misted cuttings, where we cut when they first emerge out of the ground in the spring. We'll cut them off when they're about 2 feet tall, and every internode where the leaves come out, you cut it about 1 inch either side of that. You put it in rooting compound, which you can get from the garden centre. Use it in roses and stuff like that.
Bone meal.
No, not bone meal. No, rooting compound is actually a hormone.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the powder. We use it.
Yeah.
We use it at work. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Bone meal's useful as a adjustant for the soil, but we don't use that for this purpose. And then we put it in we've got a greenhouse which has spray jets in it, so mists, literally. So you get it warm and humid, and they will generate their own roots within about 2 weeks. So we can, off a single plant, depending on how vigorous they are, you can propagate anywhere from 20 to 100 off a single plant.
Wow.
The start of the process is always really slow because we've got one plant, and we have nearly killed the mother plant on several occasions because we've been so keen to take all these cuttings. But once you're up to 10 or 20 plants, you can grow it almost exponentially.
Yeah.
It's getting up to that initial number to get the base material to propagate from, really. But in a home environment, the strap cuttings are the way to go. They're foolproof, really.
Well, this has been like genuinely fascinating to hear this level of information about how hops are grown, and the fact that you are a hop grower. We have wanted to speak to someone with this level of information and insight and knowledge for a long time. So thank you so much for sharing what's been some really insightful information about hops.
I just have one more question. I'm going to go slightly more geeky here, Will. So within the process of taking the cuttings and growing the new plant, roughly how much genetic variation do you get from taking that cutting to then producing a new plant? I mean, I understand it pretty well, but within plants, I'm not quite so sure. I'm used to mammalian genetics more than I am from from plant genetics, what sort of level of variation do you get from taking the cuttings to the final plant being grown up?
We don't get a massive amount of variation, but that's with caveats. So the first caveat is that when you plant these misted cuttings in the ground, we don't harvest them for the first year because you want them to put to senesce, to put energy back into that rhizome to grow the next year. So what tends to happen, if you've got some that are a bit advanced, they will actually get hop cones, and because we grow seeded hops here, you'll get a seed drop and you'll get some off types, we call them, growing within the hop yard. So basically a seed will drop and you'll get a daughter of that variety growing next to the parent plant. So that's one caveat. The other caveat is, and it is a bit geeky, so sorry about this, but hops are quite susceptible to epigenetics. So genetically they can be the same plant, but the environment that you put them in will turn on or off various genes. So, you know, that gene is there or it isn't, but it can be turned on or off by its environment, which means that you're quite right, there are variations. If you take a plant from one environment to another, so say if you took Citra and you planted it in the UK, over time that plant would adapt to its environment. Some of those genes would be turned on and off, and you would end up with
differential
something.
expression. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's like UK Cascade, isn't it?
it's UK
Yes.
Cascade versus American Cascade versus Kohatu or whatever they've named it this week.
Tahiki.
Tahiti, that's the one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so with that, New Zealand has got an ozone hole, and there are not many benefits to having an ozone hole, apart from the fact that UV excites the lupulin glands in the hop, and so it's effectively a turbocharger for any hop that they grow over there. So their hops tend to maximize their potential because they have so much UV fired at them.
That's what it is,
during the growing
Tricky.
season.
It's an ozone hole.
That's why New Zealand hops are much more potent than ours, because of a hole in the ozone
That's
layer.
the secret.
There we go.
Need to sacrifice the ozone layer.
Yeah,
So
so just get those
essentially-
CF gases. Get
So
Get the
New
old
Zealand
deodorants out, you know.
So New Zealand hops are basically mutants, is what you're telling me.
No, so that they this is probably a subject of another podcast, Chris, but they've spent a long time. They've got birds that actually eat their hop seeds. We don't have that problem here. So in order to develop seedless hops, they've developed a triploid hop breeding program. And in order to have a triploid hop breeding program, they've had to have a diploid and a tetraploid hop breeding program. And those that aren't used to talking about genetics will probably just think I'm making these words up and it's nonsense.
That's
But,
so cool.
Essentially, you can induce tetraploidy in hops relatively easily, but they've spent 20 years building up a library of varieties that they then cross with diploids. And so they get a triploid. The triploids are infertile, so they don't produce seeds, which means the hops don't get attacked by the birds. And they tend to have two sets of genetic material from either their mother or their father, depending on which was the tetraploid in the first place. And that doubling up of the genetic material, don't fall asleep, Andy.
Listening.
That doubling up of the genetic material sort of compounds the genetic predispositions. So if it's a susceptibility to a disease, it will be even more susceptible to that disease. But if it is to produce a really nice tropical top note, it will increase its ability to do that.
That's mad.
I'm just loving that I'm just loving that Will's like worried about his geekiness on this.
And it's
This
like
is your audience, Will. No, this is your audience, Will. You can seriously go into all this gear.
Exactly.
Everyone
Eating it out
is
of
like a
his hands.
sponge. They're loving this shit.
But it's one of those things. It's like genetics is one. Everybody ignores genetics because it's such a. You've got it. It's part of you. It's such a thing that everybody has it. Everybody ignores it. It's like the sky's above you. Nobody looks at the sky anymore. But it controls everything, and that to me is the wonderful part about hops. And it's one of the things that I want to know about. Is it possible within the hop plant to do what people do with certain fruits, whereby they'll take a cut in, they split, they put it in, they bind it, wait for it to heal, and then do you get mixed hop flavors coming off of the offshoot off the side?
Because it's relatively soft material and it's perennial that grows from the ground up every year, you can't do it, Chris.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. It is a
shame.
I
wanted a cross between Motueka and Bramling Cross because I wanted those limey hedgerow fruits, but we'll see.
I think there's some fascinating new varieties coming through, so don't worry about that, Chris. That there are, if you want the interesting thing is Motueka's mostly Sart's genetics.
I know it is. Just grown in New Zealand. It's spider hop is what it is.
That's what's unlocking. Yeah.
It's the hulking hop varieties.
You tell us what flavors you want, and we'll see what we can do. But I
want Bramling crossed with Motueka. That's what I want.
Okay,
it's wonderful. This is amazing. Now we have a question from our audience, Will, and Reiki. The same applies to you as well. So there's a gentleman who goes by the name of Thomas, who we've called Santa because he is. And he lives in Sweden. Now, Thomas is a wonderful guy. He's a patron of our podcast. He was actually the guy who came up with the subject for our last episode, which was, what did we do last episode? It was how to clone a beer, wasn't it? Yeah. And he wants to know, are you joining the after party for a little while? Because he has a few questions about growing hops.
I didn't know there was an after party. If you've got some, I can do. Yep, why not?
If you can, even if it's just for 20 minutes, half an hour, drink some more beer, talk to all the guys, and basically they will have questions. They always have questions. So shall we call that one at 2 hours and 22 minutes?
I think we probably ought to, really, but
because there's a lot of
incredibly
information.
Enjoyable and insightful.
I think there's a lot of information, but I think there's definitely another podcast where we can grill Will and
only one.
I love his geekiness, and he says "Oh, I'm sorry for getting geeky."
That's
everybody
exactly what we want. Yeah.
That's our bag, Will. We are geeks.
Go full geek.
Because we had Lance Sharner on from Amiga, and he went full geek on genetics of yeast, and and it was amazing. Lance. We loved it. It was so cool.
I'm not sure I understood 50% of what he said to me, but having re-listened to the podcast a few times, I think I understand what you're saying to me.
I think that's the joy. Is if you enjoy and absorb 50% of it, and they can go back and watch it again or again and again, you learn from it. And I think that's the great thing about the Hop Edition podcast. You can learn so much.
We don't want people to come on and be corporate. We don't want you to turn up and just give us the advertising line. Literally, if you're a geek, be a geek. We want geeks. We want the information. You've told Andy that horse shit is the best way to get his hops to grow. You've told us about splitting hops. We've talked about haploids, diploid, and tetraploids. I got that. Even if I'm the only person in the world who got that, I'm happy. And more importantly,
that's why I don't come in here saying, buy some Fuggles, buy some EKG. I'm here for the conversation and geeking out on what Will's got to tell us. Every day is a school day with Will.
Exactly, and that's what we want. We need more people like Will, because there's people in this community who are stuck in a rut, and we don't want them stuck in a rut. We want them trying everything. For God's sake, try everything twice. First time might be a fluke. Anyway, I think we're going to call it there. I'm going to say it this week, boys. That is episode 91, and it is in the bag. Tricky is currently a little bit busy doing other stuff. His little boy ain't very well, so he's dealing with him. I'm sure he'll join us on the after party. Whatever happens, Will, do not leave this page. Don't close this window until we tell you that you can. And more importantly, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for giving us the hop. Thanks to Rake for sending it out. I know the Malt Miller are awesome. Everybody knows the Malt Miller are awesome. But they've proved their awesomeness by trusting us for absolute arseholes with a brand spanking new hop. And I hope we've done you justice. I hope we've given you data that you can use. Oh, name the hop. Absolutely, Brett. Name the. It's got to be
Melanie.
Melanie.
It's Melanie.
It's got to be.
How's it spelled?
Obviously,
though?
Will's got veto. He can call it whatever he likes because it's his hop.
Is it spelled Melanie? Is it
I do
MEL?
like Melanie. I don't know whether we can collect the name suggestions, whether anybody has anything else, but I'm going to put Melanie towards the marketing team, and we'll see what they come back with. But
Maloney or something like that.
I think it has to be spelled the girl's name. It has to be spelled the girl's name way, really.
Yeah.
So it's
Definitely.
Thank you ever so much for your input, guys. And the beers, I've been amazed. They're stunning. Really enjoyed them. And the company has been fantastic as well. Good chat. Always love a bit of banter. And thank you, guys. Really, really loads of fun.
It's been great. I've loved it.
Cheers, Will.
It's been amazing.
No, thank you, Will. You've been absolutely amazing, as always.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't think there was a bigger geek than me in the world. I think we just found him. I'll be honest.
Will is the biggest hop geek in the world, and that's why I love him. He's awesome.
It's ace. So, episode 91 in the bag. I'm going to sort out the after party link and stuff, but if we can just have everybody say goodbye and then 10-second silence so that Tricky can do his editing thing. So, thanks, Will. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the after party.
cheers,
Ciao.
mate.
Bye.
Right. Now I can sort out the after party because I didn't want to type everything out. So I've got an analog keyboard and it just makes
It's so
Seriously,
loud. Yeah.
it makes
Oh,
a
seriously,
goddamn
you've been
noise.
absolutely amazing. Homebrewers love what you talk about, and that's why we love you. It's like
It's all the golden nuggets that you get. Those
Yeah.
bits of information that it's like.
there's portions that go over my head, but it's kind of like, well, I want to go and learn about